Okay, so we're going to be discussing a few things today that are pretty common questions I get when being asked about nutrition and diet and what to do. And one of the first things we're going to address, unless you have questions before I get started, is what to eat when you want to cheat. A lot of the time we live in a society where we're just programmed to go to junk food. Everywhere we look, on the television, on billboards, in magazines, on the internet, we're prompted to want to eat stuff that is not real food. Processed sugar, processed refined flour, a lot of additives that can definitely increase the toxicity of our bodies, okay, and how our bodies function. So a lot of the people that are coming to Neomed have issues with total toxic burden, and that means having so many toxins in your body that you're starting to have symptoms that make life difficult. So people are tired all the time, they're not able to sleep properly, they don't have the right focus, they have brain fog, they have a lot of issues that they really want to, get sorted. And so when we're looking at food, when we're looking at what foods to eat when we want to cheat, my best advice and the most simple I can give is eat real food. Okay, so if it comes in a box and it has more than 4 ingredients, don't eat it. It's that easy, okay? And there are great recipes that you can make that are easy, that will help you to feel satisfied, feel like you've had a little bit of something sweet that will kind of alleviate your sweet tooth, and that will make you feel good as well. And so with one of our patients here, we kind of talked about fat balls. And so you can actually make high density snacks that are basically a little bit of fruit, some coconut oil, and some coconut shreddings, and you can feel satisfied that you had a little bit of something sweet along with a good fat that will make you feel satisfied for longer. You can make things with things like maple syrup or agave syrup or honey. All these things are autoimmune protocol approved. You can have a little bit of these things when you want to satisfy that sweet tooth. We're not saying that we're going to sprinkle honey on everything, but we are saying that when you do want those things, it's okay to have, as long as you're looking at really getting into your nutrition real food. So when you want to cheat, look at making things with real food. A very easy thing that I do, and my kids love it, is ice cream made from 2 ingredients, bananas and cocoa. What you do is you take some bananas, you cut them up, you freeze them, then you put them in a blender, you add some cocoa, you add a little bit of water, and you mix it really well in the blender, you put it back into a container, you put it in the freezer, and you have ice cream. Go on. And so and what are you getting? You're getting bananas that are actually low glycemic index food. They're high in potassium, which are very good for your muscles. And you're getting cocoa, which is a good source of magnesium, especially if you're using organic raw cocoa. So you're getting that feeling of satisfying, that feeling that you want ice cream, but you're getting nutrition, you're getting nutrient density into your diet. So when you want to cheat, think about nutrient density, think about real food. Don't go for the processed stuff. In fact, a lot of the time when we're going into the supermarket, 90% of that food on the shelf is dead food. It does nothing for us except increase our chances of getting disease. You want viable stuff. You want fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised meats, chicken, wild-caught fish, all these things that our body recognizes. And when we start, like 90% of our food that we're eating this every single day, our body recognizes this and it tells us, oh, thank you, you fed us. Our body also has a very cool mechanism, and a lot of my patients say, you know what, even though I'm eating the right amounts, I'm always feeling hungry. Your body tells you that you're hungry because there's no nutrition, there's no nutrients. All of a sudden, when you eat real food, you're satisfied with a plate of food, and probably you can go for 5 or 6 hours without wanting to eat again because your body's been satisfied with real food. So that's really important to kind of look at diet and not say I'm on a diet, but saying how can I, every time we have a plate in front of us, it's an opportunity either to feed health or to feed disease. So it's your choice. Every time you're choosing to put something in your mouth, you're either feeding your health or feeding your disease. Okay? Do you guys know which are the main culprits of inflammation in diet? What's
Sugar.
one? Yeah, sugar is the number one. It's like it's the number one narcotic. It can, you know, just throw everything off balance. It's not only important in combating issues like diabetes and people where sugar they think is the obvious culprit, but in a lot of brain diseases like Alzheimer's they're calling type 3 diabetes. And so when we're looking at things like Alzheimer's, no carbohydrate or very low carbohydrate can actually help to reverse a lot of the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So sugar is one of them. Anybody else know another inflammation causing food? Okay, so we have
acidic foods.
Refined white flour. Okay, we have a lot of debate about is gluten really bad for you? Is are wheat products really bad for you? Unfortunately, the wheat today is one of the most genetically modified foods in the world. And not only that, it's getting sprayed with glyphosate, which is very toxic. They did a study, Friends of the Earth group did a study here in Cyprus looking at how much glyphosate are in people's bodies, and they tested the urine of people in Cyprus. And over 50% of people in Cyprus had glyphosate in their urine. And so, and these numbers are much higher in places like England, in places like America. We're just seeing people having so much total toxic burden from all the foods we're eating. And so, since wheat, not only is it sprayed with this stuff, but it's very processed. And so, when it's genetically modified, you're getting this short dwarf wheat, which makes it have more gluten in it and less nutrients in it. It's then taken, it's ground down, bleach is added to make it look white. So we're getting, and then a lot of this wheat is also used to make a lot of the processed foods that we're eating today. And so you just get this vicious circle of chronic disease constantly, making us feel bad. And when it comes to the research, gluten is one of the driving forces of getting a leaky gut. A very brilliant Harvard professor, he said, Dr. Alessio Fasano, he said that gluten is responsible for releasing a protein called zonulin into our gut, and zonulin is responsible for increasing leaky gut. And what does it mean when we have leaky gut? It means that stuff that can exist happily inside our intestine all of a sudden escapes into the bloodstream. And the immune system is waiting right there and it's saying, we don't recognize this. This isn't vitamin A. This isn't, some amino acid. This is some invader. And it starts to attack. And this creates low-grade chronic inflammation. And when you have low-grade chronic inflammation, your body is constantly in a state of attack. And this is where disease can start. And if this is happening day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, all of a sudden you have an autoimmune issue or you have some other issue that you need to address. So it takes years to happen. And gluten is a very real cause of that and can cause inflammation in the body. Okay? Some people are more sensitive than others. But in general, gluten is one of those things. Whereas once you start healing the gut, you can start going back to eating grains like zeas and spelt and sorghum and millet that are either low gluten or no gluten. And these are ancient grains that have a lot more nutrient density. But you have to do that once you heal your gut. And that takes, a whole other protocol as well. I think I went off tangent a little bit. But another food that a lot of people view as healthy but is not necessarily healthy and can cause inflammation is conventional dairy. And even though dairy in and of itself can be a very nutrient-dense food, it's high in calcium, it has a lot of other vitamins and minerals that your body needs, the way it's produced and the way it's mass-marketed, like in our training as a registered dietitian, they told us, you should be telling people to have 3 to 4 servings of dairy every single day to get the right amounts of calcium. But if you think about how nature works, a cow has to get pregnant to produce milk. So if we're producing that milk in mass amounts, we have to inject hormones into that cow to produce that milk. And in order to do that, in order to produce all those hormones, and that cow is now in a state of inflammation. And when that cow is in a state of inflammation and producing that milk, we're drinking it. And not only this, when we pasteurize the milk, we're killing all the enzymes and the good stuff in that milk anyway. And so when we're just left with this white substance that I doubt has that much nutrition in it anyway. So when we're looking at eating dairy products, again, we have to heal the gut first, but avoiding sugar, avoiding gluten, avoiding dairy. And when we look at reintroducing dairy, we want to do high quality dairy, organic dairy. Typically, milk from goats and sheep are better tolerated in people than from cows. So fermented dairy is also better tolerated once the gut is healed. So things like kefir, that can also help the gut as well. If we're doing non-dairy now, we can do coconut water kefir, and we can get trillions of good bacteria from making that every day. It's very easy to do. You just order some grains, add some coconut water kefir to a bottled water, cover it for a day, and the next day you're good to go. You can drink it a little bit every single day, and you're getting trillions of good probiotics that can really help with things like your skin, your immune system, your gut, your hair, all of that. What to eat in between meals? Well, let me start by asking, what do you guys eat in between meals?
Chocolate.
Chocolate, okay.
Biscuits. Chips.
Chocolate, biscuit, chips, okay. All right, so chips. We can take kale, break it up into little leaves, put it on a baking tray, sprinkle some olive oil, some Himalayan salt, stick it in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, and you have kale chips. And if my 8-year-old and 4-year-old can eat it and love it and share it with their entire class that eats it and loves it too, it means that it's a pretty good snack to have. So getting in your leafy greens and eating chips in that way is a great way. You can also do it with, like if you have a slicer at home, you can do it with beetroot, you can do it with sweet potato and create chips like that to snack on. Very easy to make. Very easy to make. We said biscuits. So there's other ways of making biscuits that are much healthier. You don't have to use sugar. Like we said, we can use a little bit of honey or a little bit of maple syrup. And you can use healthier ingredients like cassava flour or coconut flour, or just some organic gluten-free flours that we want to put in there. And again, doing this in between meals, when it comes to eating a treat, it still should be treated as a treat. It shouldn't be treated as, oh, I can have this every single day. All right, it should be treated as, all right, well, my friends are coming over and I'm going to bake them something nice, or I'm going to a birthday party and I can bring this with me to have as a treat. Should be treated as a treat. In between meals, again, we should be going for 5 or 6 hours if we're healthy without eating. So most people should be having a good breakfast, a good lunch, a good dinner. If we're hungry, again, we should be mixing a good carbohydrate like a fruit with something that is high in protein and a little bit of fat. Okay, so nuts, for example. Not peanuts, because they tend to be highly like an allergen food, and they can cause inflammation in a lot of people. So sticking to things like almonds and walnuts, but again, it depends on the individual and what they're able to tolerate. Okay, everybody's different. So giving nutrition advice is a bit tricky, because I always think about how everybody's an individual and everybody reacts to different foods differently. So for example, I could eat almonds and feel really good, whereas somebody in this room could be eating almonds and then feel really sick and get headaches. Okay, so it's also really finding out about what works for you. And doing protocols like the autoimmune protocol, which is an elimination diet, can really help you to understand, once you start reintroducing those foods, what works for you and what doesn't. For those of you that don't know, an elimination diet is the gold standard of finding out what food sensitivities you have. There's lots of testing that we can do, but from my experience, they're with relative accuracy. And so what we want to do is really test as an individual what works for us. And the only way to understand if foods are not good for us is to eliminate them for a certain period of time and then to reintroduce them and look out for symptoms.